Hi everybody, this is me working from my kitchen table. I wanted to go over the basics of the stencil as far as kind of taking it from like ideation over like your drawing to a finished product. And so I'm going to be working, translating this image right here, this sketch right here. And this was of one of the sketches that I had done for the word determination because Miley had suggested that I do that one. And so I'll show you how I took that drawing and translated it into a stencil. So I redrew it on the sheet of paper. It's just your normal copy paper, 11 by 17. And so that way I have a little bit, 8.5 by 17. There we go. So that way I have like the opportunity to be able to do something a little bit larger, but showing you that I can do it basically on any kind of paper. A stencil doesn't have to be on any kind of specific like thick or medium. It could be really on anything. And I cut out most of it using an X-Acto and this cutting mat. If you don't have a cutting mat, you could use an old piece of cardboard. You could use whatever you have lying around that will that you don't mind scratching up with a X-Acto. So I cut out most of this because I wanted to be a little bit ahead of time so this demo doesn't last forever. But I drew it all out first, as you can kind of see some of the sketch lines. And then I still have this area right here with the wing. So I'm gonna bring this video down a little bit so you don't have to see me and you can watch me work. So that looks like it should be on point. So one of the things I'm doing and that I did for this when I was trying to create these forms is I'm trying to make simplified forms, right? And so I start with like the shadow area essentially and just kind of accentuate that. And then I fill those in just to make sure that I know that it's going to be an area that I'm going to cut away. Excuse me. And then I bring part of this up so that way there's a connecting point or an anchor point, and that allows the stencil not to fall through. So sorry. And please forgive me because I am not used to walking and talking per se. It's very difficult to try to teach and be able to talk and work on the projects that you're working on at the same time. So please forgive me if I am not good at it at the moment, and you might hear a lot of ums and filler words, but it's the way I roll. So right now all I'm doing is I'm kind of putting in the plumage of this wing and doing it so that I have the shadow areas or the areas that aren't getting any light. And then for consistency's sake or for the sake of drawing, I'm creating these shapes in a consistent manner. And so you can see it looks like that's a wing, and trying to keep it as consistent as I can. Also, you don't want to make these too long because if they connect to other parts, they could fall out. So just a few more. Okay, so I got the wing pretty much how I want it. And then you could add this top one right here to make it a little bit more legible visually. I think that helps. All right, so Um, well, actually, I'll talk about this. So, say you only have a pen and pencil or paper. If your pencil or pen is hard enough or sharp enough, you can definitely come in here and you could actually break down the paper so that way it starts to um, actually cut into the paper. I only recommend this if you absolutely don't have an X-Acto or some kind of utility knife or a box cutter maybe, because it will be a little bit more time consuming. And what I'm doing is I'm just slowly going over that line over and over again until it starts to break down the paper. Excuse me. I have seasonal allergies, and it's the worst time to have them because, as you know, everything that's going on makes me a hypochondriac. So I'm like, I have the coronavirus. No, I don't, but it definitely is worrisome when you. And so you see, I said it's sorry. It's worrisome when you don't know what's going on. You don't know what the situation is. I do know it's allergies though, because I've been at home for more than a week now, straight. Some of you longer, right? So you could see that got cut away. It's not the most ideal or clean as far as a stencil, but it will work. So, and that's just a pen. And so as long as you have a pen, you could do it with a pencil too. You just have to be careful. And as you see, I'm lifting the paper slightly so that way it has a little bit of, so it releases some of this piece right here. And again, this isn't that most ideal situation, but just in case you are saying, well, Javier, I don't have an X-Acto. Well, you don't need one per se, but I am going to use mine because I do have one. And even when you have one, you have to be careful that your blade is not dull. Mine is really getting dull because I've worked on this stencil and I was creating another one for the 3-color part stencil. And so this is definitely breaking down. Again, having a new blade isn't per se like necessary unless your blade is just totally dull. You know, all I'm trying to do is keep these from connecting to other areas that I'm cutting out. Because again, if you have too many of them and they're in too close proximity, that whole area would fall out. And so you just got to be kind of conscious of that. And so sometimes if you're working on a stencil, you get to the point where you realize that you might have cut out too many pieces and it falls out. Just start all over. I mean, it's going to suck, but you have time right now, right? So, and the deadline that I put for this isn't hard and fast per se. Like, I do want to finish it by that date, just so that way we can get on to other things. One other assignment, sorry, I should say. Like, I don't want to assign more things that you already need to do, because I'm sure most of you are just trying to deal with this this pandemic as best you can, emotionally and spiritually and mentally and physically and all the other ways that we think about situations. So please take care of yourselves. And as your X-Acto blade starts to get dull, what I'm doing is you could see that I'm placing down my other fingers on the area where I'm cutting to kind of hold down that area, especially because it's paper. And so paper is very flimsy, and so it tends to want to pull back up. And so I'm just holding it down to make sure that it doesn't come back up in that way. Almost there. Please be patient. And this is exactly why I Martha Stewart the most of this. And the stencil could be really about anything. The prompts that I gave you were just that. They were just prompts to give you an idea of if you wanted to talk about this thing that's going on and how you're feeling about it. I mean, stencils are pretty. They relate to political events and the way that they've been used in the past, starting all the way back into as early as, I mean, as mankind was making art, essentially, but also they were used heavily during World War II as a way to combat the Nazi propaganda. They were getting, the Nazi swastikas were getting gone over by anti-fascist movements with some of their symbols. And so you'd always think about how you could react to things that are going on via stencils. It doesn't have to be political though, it could be really anything. And so whatever gets you making art. And I apologize that you have to still continue to think about art during this time, but I feel like it's a nice distraction for those of you who need it, right? Because there's plenty of other things to think about. For me, how am I going to be paying my student loans if there's no work? Last cut. So one thing to think about too is like move this around to get the best cutting position. I was just doing it upside down so I could show you in the video, but really I should have been switching around like I was doing with the rest of it. So that's essentially it. I'm gonna cut out this area where I was cutting it with the pen, just so that way it's a little bit cleaner. I just wanted to show you that so that way you had an idea that even if you have limited supplies and things to be able to work with, you could always do it still with a pen and paper, right? So you can create a pen and paper, and create a nice stencil. Okay, it'll take a lot longer, but you have something that is definitely achievable. I hope this helps, and I hope you all are taking care of yourselves and staying healthy. I will post another one of me coloring this in shortly, but I wanted to get at least the process of how from going from like ideation or drawing to a finished stencil initially, and then I'll post another one later today using, I did one recently with spray paint, and but with this one I want to keep it with materials that you might have at home. So if you don't have spray paint, you could always use colored pencils in here. You could use pen. You could use different colored pens to create a different color, because it is going to be a 3-color stencil. You could use graphite pen and a lighter shading technique with the graphite, so that way you can change the variation of tonal range in that way. It's really what you have at home and how the best you can still create this project. I hope this helps, and I will be posting some other things, other videos for you to look at, okay? Take care of yourselves and be healthy. Bye.